Hello everybody, my name is Gia Panetta. I'm a junior at Carmel High School, and today I have the honor of moderating the AIM Ideas Lab presentation. So, as you may or may not know, AIM last year started the AIM Ideas Lab, and it's based around youth being the researchers, solving their own problems and taking matters into their own hands, a concept called youth participatory action research. And last year, the AIM Ideas Lab was limited to Monterey County, but this year we've had a chance to expand to 3 counties, Monterey, Marin, and San Luis Obispo. Overall, we got over 1,000 participants, and you are about to see how the data from each of these counties actually compares and differs. And so data, you're probably like, what data? And basically what happened in the AIM Ideas Lab is that we gathered youth researchers, high schoolers, over 9 weeks, and we taught them quantitative versus qualitative data, and eventually teaching them how to design their own survey, which they then distributed to youth in their county and then analyzed the results. And so without further ado, why don't we let the researchers introduce themselves and tell us a little more about why they're here.
Thank you, Gia. I'll go first. I'm Alyssa, Galicia. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a junior at Carmel High School, and I'm from the Monterey County. And I decided to join the AIM Ideas Lab for many of the same reasons that Gia explained. You know, mental health is such an important issue, and it's not talked about nearly enough, even in the youth, and I just wanted to be part of the solution.
Yeah, hi, my name is Chloe Yee. I'm a junior at Stevenson High School in Pebble Beach, and I'm from Monterey County. I joined the Ideas Lab because I was in it last year, and I wanted to see how the research from this year, how I can utilize it to help my fellow peers.
Hi, my name is Alejandra. I am a senior at San Domenico School in Marin County. I joined the AIM Ideas Lab because I am just very passionate about advocating for youth mental health. And what really drew me to it was the idea of youth participatory research, because there is a real need for youth participation in mental health research, because in reality, the youth are the experts. We know what we're going through and we know what we need. And there is a need for adults to listen to youth in these mental health conversations. So I was really intrigued by the opportunity to find out what mental health challenges are most prevalent and how we can best help from the actual youth.
Okay. Hello. I'm Mariana, and I'm a senior at San Domenico School from Marin County. And then I joined AIM because being a teen with a passion for mental health, I wanted to help highlight and help others understand the importance of mental health in youth.
Hi, I'm Nathaniel McDonald. I'm a sophomore at Arroyo Grande High School in SLO County. I joined the AIM Ideas Lab because I thought that mental health is a serious issue that's against everyone and nowadays, and especially the youth, and I would like to do something that actually makes a genuine difference.
Hello, my name is Banyan Wentzel, and like Nathaniel, I am also a sophomore at Arroyo Grande High School and in SLO County. The reason I decided to join the AIM Youth Mental Health is to help break the stigma against men's mental health. Of course, all mental health is important, but something I really am interested in and would like to focus on is the importance of men's mental health and how to break that stigma.
Great, thank you. It's nice to meet you all. Now, why don't you tell us a little more about the AIM Ideas Lab survey? What research questions were you guys trying to answer with this survey?
Yeah, so our research questions this year were what are the major mental health challenges youth are facing today and why? And how can everyone in the community help address youth mental health? So in total, there were 61 high school students who participated in the AIM Ideas Lab this year, coming from 16 different high schools in Monterey, Marin, and SLO counties. Student volunteers spent about 2 months learning about conducting research, developing a survey, fielding the survey to teens in their counties, and then analyzing the data and developing a report to provide recommendations on how to better support youth mental health.
That's great, thank you. And so how exactly was the AIM Ideas Lab conducted in terms of getting respondents and over 1,000 responses?
Yeah, so talking about the survey some more, it took 5 to 10 minutes to complete, with each county fielding its own survey with some overlapping in the questions. And we collected demographic information like age, gender identity, and race and ethnicity. And we asked both quantitative and qualitative questions to see more about these issues. And the survey was distributed in February and March of 2023 via social media, schools, text message, and email.
And so what exactly did the demographics of the respondents look like? Who exactly was taking this survey?
So yeah, we had over 1,000 respondents, 1,224 from all 3 counties, Monterey, Marin, and San Luis Obispo. So this was mainly towards, it was entirely conducted towards high school students. So we had, for our age range, 14 through 18-year-olds. There were mainly 15, 16, and 17-year-olds. 14 and 18-year-olds were slightly lower, but that's because that's the outer edges of high school age range. For our grade, for the grades, we received many of the same results, pretty equal between 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. There were slightly more seniors, but that's not necessarily statistically significant. And yeah. This graph shows the respondents' gender identity. So in our survey, we did have a question that had a drop-down list. You could select multiple options, including man, woman, non-binary, non-conforming, transgender, prefer not to say, and other. And this kind of reflects the youth of today. There's expanding awareness about different gender identities. Our results showed that we got a lot more female respondents rather than the rest of them. 59% were women and 31% were men. And we'll revisit this, yeah. And then finally, for our respondents' racial and ethnic identity, similar to the previous question, we had a drop-down menu of different things you could select, and you can select more than one. It was pretty representative of the general demographics across the different counties that we fielded the survey to. It reflects the diverse youth population of today, with mainly white, Hispanic or Latina, and Asian respondents. Yeah.
Yeah, so the survey sample is influenced by our school partnerships in all 3 counties. And in Monterey County, this was the 2nd year of programming of the Ideas Lab. And we were able to get a lot of respondents from a number of schools across the county. Additionally, my school, Stevenson, was able to support the AIM Ideas Lab info and was interested in receiving youth mental health first aid training, showing how Monterey was able to hit a lot of schools.
In Marin County, the AIM Ideas Lab was a pilot program this year, and all of the participants in the Ideas Lab group are from private schools. So as a result, most of the survey respondents also attend private schools since it was just easiest to reach them. So for future Ideas Labs, we hope to get more students from more diverse schools.
Yeah, and in SLO County, similarly to Marin, this was the first year of partnership with AIM, and the majority of respondents on this survey were from Arroyo Grande High School, although it is important to note that Mission Prep High School was also polled, but later on, and their data is not included in this slideshow.
Great. And so, clearly there are demographic differences between the 3 counties, as to be expected. But in terms of the actual survey data, you guys were able to discover a lot of similarities, right?
Yes. Here we have the most common mental health challenges that teens across the 3 counties have come into contact with number 1 being anxiety, number 2 being depression, number 3 being low self-esteem and self-worth, and fourth being eating disorders and or having an unhealthy relationship with food.
Yeah, so a big discussion that we had in our Ideas Labs groups were that because anxiety and depression are so common, they can often be minimalized, overlooked, and are not given the importance that they truly need. I've heard, oh, you have anxiety. Okay, so does everyone else. And that is really harmful and devalidating to people that go through these challenges. Both of these are also commonly romanticized or joked about. The words depression, anxiety get thrown around like it's nothing and like it's not something that's actually really hard to live with. And then we hear, isn't anxiety just stress? Isn't depression just being sad? And that minimizes how hard these things are to live with. That minimizes how strong the teenagers that actually experience these are.
Another thing to note is that eating disorders are likely very high up on this because they tend to be super romanticized and popularized on social media because of like diet culture and workout culture and stuff like that. And it also, because of the same reason, is really big in some social circles, which we hypothesize means that schools should probably educate students about the threat of eating disorders and the issues with social media depictions of like weight loss culture and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. And social media is used in a lot of teens. Also, knowing that the younger generation, including middle schoolers, have access to social media such as TikTok and Instagram and also Snapchat. And we can see how social media may be driving the anxiety or the eating disorders that teens are facing. Also, it's really important to highlight that joking around about these mental health issues isn't helping. It could really it could trigger those teens, and it could also cause them to go back to their unhealthy ways and coping skills even after they have recovered.
So this slide is showing that over or almost one half of our respondents knew someone who had thoughts of ending their life, which is a shockingly high amount. But we also thought that this is likely because many instances of self-harm are used socially as almost a threat or just to elicit a reaction from other peers or often romantic partners, which makes us think that schools should educate students, staff, parents, and teachers about the weight of suicidal ideation and self-harm and stuff like that, and how to communicate effectively about it and how to talk about it with each other. They should also, schools should also attempt to limit risk factors of suicidal ideation and should not avoid talking about it, but should know how to talk about it correctly as not to cause any more issues with publicizing anything. And they should especially focus on preventative measures rather than just responding right after anything actually happens.
Yeah, because we had so many respondents who knew people about having ideas of suicide, it's really important for schools to integrate peer support trainings for youth and trainings for adults, specifically teachers, on how they can support their students.
And now, I know last year when we assessed mental health challenges by grade, we found a shocking trend among juniors and that they were experiencing the most mental health challenges. Now, what exactly did we find this year?
Yeah, so last year the hypothesis was that juniors faced the most stress because of academics. But this year we hypothesized that COVID has a big effect on this because this year seniors had the highest percentage.
So as seniors, we were quarantined and isolated from the start of our high school experience. Right after making this huge change in our lives, going from middle school to high school, we had another change. We got put into lockdown. And this heavily impacted our mental health and our academics, which also worsened mental health challenges. And now, even though we are kind of back to what is normal, we haven't had a full year of an actual high school experience, and we are feeling the aftermath of being socially isolated during such a big change of our lives.
Yes, and adding on to what Alejandra said, Being a senior, I see a lot of different seniors. Oh, okay. Feeling the same. They're on the same page that as a senior, we don't actually feel like we're seniors because COVID interrupted many years in our high school years, and so high school is like it's very common to deal with mental health challenges, and so where we feel lost. So it was a very hard time for us. And personally, I got in mental health. I got into mental health like my sophomore year, which was only the first year into the pandemic. And then I got connected with my counselor through Zoom because I was really hesitant to reach out to my parents due to them being really unfamiliar with it.
Yeah, as a junior, I feel like we had many of the same experiences as the seniors. We got interrupted at the end of our 8th grade year, so we weren't able to have our 8th grade graduation. When we transitioned from 8th grade to freshman year, that was still fully online. So it was really a strange transition because the transition from middle school to high school is already pretty difficult for many people. It can spark some mental health issues, but being on Zoom, I think some of those issues could have been exacerbated even more. Going to school, high school, for the first time at the end of our freshman year, for many of us, was pretty rocky, although in some respects it might have been, the whole COVID experience kind of put everyone at the high school on like a level playing field in some respects, because all of us kind of hadn't been at school for a while, so we were all feeling a little strange. So in some ways, the pandemic was almost an equalizing effect for the freshmen that were coming in. And the effects of COVID on grades, it's all really still to be determined, because I'm speaking from the experience of someone who had the end of their 8th grade year kind of interrupted. But what about the elementary schoolers, the 5th graders who were transitioning to middle school? They only had one class, and then they were tossed into middle school with 7 periods. It must have been really, really rocky for them on their mental health. So I think the solution is to continue doing these ideas labs and see where the results from the people who were younger during the COVID pandemic, how they reveal themselves, because it's a little unclear right now, but we need to continue doing the ideas lab to help see with the effects.
And I am speaking upon behalf of the sophomores, and as sophomores, we missed our middle school years. And as many of you might know, is the middle school is really where you find out who you are, find out what you like, find out the true person that you are. And this could be even seen in the data that the sophomores had the highest amount of gender identity problems and also having the highest amount of PTSD. And we hypothesized that this could be due to the fact that they really miss these years. They miss these years of finding who they really were, finding out who they liked, who they were. And with the missing of these years, they didn't have the chance to grow, and this could cause PTSD. We also, at Arroyo Grande High School, had almost 3 times the amount of suspensions because people weren't used to conversating with people. People were used to sitting at home and playing video games, sitting at home on Instagram. They had no human connection for almost 2 years. And I know as a sophomore, it was a train wreck. Like, it was wild. There was fights all the time. It was like, what am I going into? And it was my freshman year. So it was a totally new experience, and it was very scary. And this caused a lot of stress for all the sophomores, but also for the teachers, because they had to deal with these wild students. And we feel like that we hypothesized that this miss of human connection caused a lot of these behavioral problems.
Yeah, adding on to that, at Stevenson this year we had a lot of suspensions and expulsions, especially in the junior class, because of drug use and alcohol use in the dorms, because Stevenson is a boarding school. And also, Banyan pointed out that, well, in middle school, there wasn't a lot of alcohol or drugs available. But now that you missed those middle school years and you missed freshman year, you get put into this environment where drug use and alcohol use is pretty accessible. And juniors don't really know how to deal with that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It seems like teens are still experiencing COVID. It's not over for them, clearly. Now, turning to the other side of that, where are teens going for support in the face of these mental health challenges?
So in all 3 counties, the top source when reaching out for help was actually to their friends. And then the second after that, it was tied up with family or no one. So we just wanted to highlight that a lot of teens feel as if they can't go to their parents, they feel unsupported, so they turn to no one, which won't get them any help. So we just wanted to highlight that to everybody. And so our main takeaway was that we just want everyone to let youth know that they can reach out to people when they need support. And then so just let people know that you're there for them and you're going to be supportive, because that's all teens want.
And many of you might be wondering, why weren't any staff or teachers up there? It's because around 60% of students are not willing to reach out to their teachers. Around 50% are not willing to reach out to their counselors, and about 70% are not willing to reach out to other staff on campus. Now, you might be wondering why this is important. It's because they're spending most of their time at school. This is where you really learn and grow as a human being. And not many people know, like 50% of the people don't know that you can't reach out to your counselors. A lot of people believe that this is only academics. Counselors only work on academics. This isn't publicized, I know at my school, that the counselors are also there for your mental health. And we also have a health center at Arroyo Grande, but it should be named the Health and Wellness Center, but nobody calls it. We only call it the health center, and it's only used for physical health. Even though mental health is a huge problem at our school, it's still not publicized. And we believe that this needs to be changed, and we need to publicize more that the health center is the health and wellness center. That you can go there if you're sad, you can go there if you need help, instead of having to bottle it inside and just never speak out to it, especially because school is the biggest part of a kid's growing life.
Yeah, and so for the Marin County respondents were a bit more likely to reach out to their counselors, and we think this might be because most of the respondents attend private schools, which usually at private schools they have more counselors and more mental health resources.
So what exactly do you think schools should do with this information?
I think one of the main takeaways from this information for counselors specifically, counselors should be able to create a relationship with students and be actively involved with helping students. I know this because I know it's very effective at our school. Our counselor does a lot of this. And I know that a lot of the students love her and turn to her for support. And this is because reaching out to teachers, having regular check-ins with students, this is all very important. Counselors need to be a known resource. They can't be a stranger to students. They have to make sure that that is a resource. You have to make sure that they know that is a resource for them.
Yeah, and I basically just want to highlight that point, that it's not a one and done and that's it, because counselors are supposed to check in with their students and bring that comfort and just a constant check-in, which is all the students want. They just want reassurance and the support from their counselors.
Yeah, and also schools should ask students what they can do to make wellness centers more accessible and more comfortable for their students to come and share what they're dealing with. So some ideas about making it more comfortable is maybe adding blankets, pillows, bean bags, maybe giving food out so that they can really feel that you and your counselor are kind of like best friends. You can kind of just talk and they won't judge you.
Another source that we researched in these surveys were the hotlines. And we actually found that hotlines rank low as a resource that teens will reach out to because they don't have enough information about them. So we asked, what will encourage teens to reach out to support lines? And we found that teens will reach out to support lines if they know that the line is anonymous. if they know what will happen after they call as well as when they call, knowing that there are no requirements to call, and the ability to call when not in crisis. So a shocking stat to me was that about 56 to 68% of students are not likely to reach out to hotlines. So I think that something we need to take away from this is that we need to educate youth that hotlines can be a very helpful source. So we found that knowing or not knowing seems to be a prevalent factor in several of the top responses to encourage youth to reach out to a mental health support line. And this could be because of feelings of uncertainty or anxiety about what happens when you call, or even wondering if their issues are bad enough to call. So again, youth need to be educated about what will happen when they call a hotline. So I found this topic to be particularly interesting. So I had the opportunity to have a conversation with Christina Neal, who is a 988 responder and volunteer at the Buckaloo Center in Marin County. And some of the things that she highlighted to me were that 90 to 95% of hotline calls are just talking or coming up with a safety plan. You don't have to be in a direct crisis when calling. The counselors will never turn anyone down, and there is no level of severity needed to call a hotline. Regarding if they are anonymous or not, they are usually anonymous. Parents will not be contacted unless the caller agrees to it. But it is important to remember that anonymity will be breached if there is an immediate danger or if there is suspicion of abuse or neglect for callers under 18. So specifically, what happens when you call a hotline? Because this is something that we think that youth need to know. Right away, they're going to introduce themselves and ask for your name. This is because they want to create a personal relationship with you and make you feel like a human and like you are heard. They'll ask you how you are, and they'll begin to assess the situation. This may include asking about suicidal thoughts or if someone has a suicidal plan. And if someone were to respond yes, the first step is to create a safety plan, to put whatever plan someone may have on the back burner and take any immediate danger out of the picture to de-escalate the situation in that moment. So the responder will work collaboratively with you to get you feeling safe. And again, they're gonna create a personal relationship with you because these responders they're people that care and just genuinely want to help you in that moment. These calls are conversations. The responder will offer solutions in the moment to move away from negative feelings. For example, they might tell you to take a walk or call a friend or draw a picture, eat some food. They'll point out things that you are doing well. So again, I just want to reiterate, a very important thing to do is to educate students on what happens when reaching out to a hotline, because this can be a very important resource that is unfortunately not used enough as it can be.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. That's really good information. And so it seems like anonymity is very important to teens when they're reaching out for help, as we see in this next slide.
Yeah, so for a lot of teens, concerns about parents knowing about their mental health issues prevents them from asking their parents. In fact, the number 2 barrier to reaching out for support, as recorded in our survey, was that people didn't want their parents to know. Parents are top risk factors. People don't want their parents to find out that they need mental health support. I've heard from a lot of my friends that they're worried that their parents will overreact. They're worried that their counselors will tell their parents that they're struggling, and it causes a lot of fear and anxiety, which is obviously counterproductive. A lot of teens experience anxiety over disappointing their parents, who might still see their kids as young and innocent. Parents put a lot of pressure on youth for being perfect, and they don't want to disappoint their parents by having flaws like a mental health issue. And mental health issues should not be seen as flaws, and this should not be a concern that teens have to worry about.
Yes, definitely. Talking about disappointing parents, you can really see this in kids of immigrant families, just because in their country, there's stereotypes around what the perfect child is. Like I know for Asian families, There's the stereotype that the Asian kid has to be really smart at math or STEM really effortlessly without having to put a lot of work in. And when you are struggling with that subject, you're gonna feel like you're gonna just disappoint your parents, and not only the parents, but also the culture that you come from, because you're not sticking to the model minority myth or the stereotype that is around your country.
So some of you may be asking, what can parents do to help teenagers with their mental health? It's actually really easy. Just listen. Parents need to listen to teenagers about what is going on with their mental health. There is a generational differences. Parents did not grow up actively talking about mental health. It was not a popular conversation. There is a lack of education and an increased stigma among other generations. So really, listening can be the best way to help someone when you don't know what's going on. In the survey, we actually asked what teenagers wished that adults knew about mental health. And there was a high number of responses of teens saying that they wish adults would just listen and just be there. Don't say, I know how you feel. Don't try to tell us what you think is best. Just listen to us. I know it's hard to accept, but youth are the experts. We are the ones going through these things. And sometimes the best thing that you can do is listen. So if you take anything, parents, adults, just listen to us. It makes so much more of a difference than you think it does.
Just listen. Powerful advice. Now, moving on to the next slide. Similar to last year, in this year's survey data, we found quite a few discrepancies between the data from men and the data from women. Now, what can you tell us about that?
Some things that we found in the survey about barriers for men about reaching out for the help is of being seen as fear of being seen as weak or imperfect, and how they don't want their parents to know. Something I was told as a child was men don't cry. Something my father was told as a child was men don't cry. Something my father's father was told as a child is men don't cry. And this isn't even just my family. This is a lot of men are being told this growing up, are being told that you have to be perfect, is being told that you're a man and you have to put a smile on your face no matter the situation. You're not allowed to cry. You're not allowed to be seen as weak. And this causes men just not to want to reach out. This moves on to our other points, as we don't want to bother anyone. We're so told all of our lives is that our mental health isn't important. And so we think that telling people is a bother to them. Wow. Is that it's a, wow, that one's louder. Is that it's a bother to them. Is that, and we feel like we'll be misunderstood because we're told that men's mental health isn't important and that people don't know. And this is even seen in the data where 30% of men were the respondents, and that data that we received was skewed. That data is significantly less responses from females, and that doesn't mean that men don't have these challenges. Is that, again, proving my point, is that men are scared to reach out. Men are feared of being seen as weak. Men are feared of being seen as imperfect. And even then, all those years, as they just are told again and again and again, is to not cry and that your mental health is not important. Doubtful that reaching out will help. And so one thing that I would like to pronounce is that it's okay for men to cry. It's okay for men to reach out. And I think that's something that educators here need to learn. And I'm so grateful for all the speakers, but there's a very small percentage of men listeners in here. Something that I realized is predominantly female listeners even. And that just proves my point even further, that men's mental health is such a low standard, is that it's so beneath us. And that's proven by the data as well, where it's shown that men's mental health is seen as less important to females, where about 80% of females agree that women's mental health is important, where about 60% of men agree that theirs.
So after seeing all this data and hearing you guys explain this research, what should we do? What should we do with all this?
I think a question that we seriously need to ask ourselves is, how can we help teenagers feel like their mental health challenges don't make them weak or incapable? It's not a flaw. It makes us stronger because we go through battles every day with our own minds, and it's really hard. So we need to help teenagers feel strong because of these mental health challenges.
And I think one of the biggest ways we can do that is by having schools and their staff educate everyone, including the schools and the parents and the students themselves, about mental health, like in general. And like overall through a lens and like being centered around authenticity and openness around mental health, like as a whole. Did this die? Oh, my bad. Yeah, so they should try to educate everyone about mental health in general and like how to be supportive and supporters of each other through any issues, even if it's not a problem, and to clarify like how it's okay to have problems and how important any like mental health is. And especially to encourage destigmatization and openness amongst like the community and especially the students themselves, because as we see, a lot of students don't really believe that it's important very much. And they need to provide an opportunity for students to feel and be like authentic about their feelings and themselves in every sort of way. And some of this comes in work environments, like providing academic flexibility or like flexibility within extracurricular so they have time to do self-care and things like that. But they won't know how to do self-care without being provided with the education of how to do that. So schools should also educate students about how to take care of their mental health and like coping strategies, mindfulness, things like that, ways that they can improve how they feel on a daily basis. But the most important part is that schools educate about it in a way that makes it seem like normal and open and authentic and not as an issue. And they need to talk about it like that.
Yeah, also, it would be really interesting if we take a deeper dive into how social media and mental health are intertwined. Maybe we could add a question specifically about social media and how that affects your mental health in next year's survey. Also, it would be interesting to expand the survey to maybe middle schoolers, because Alyssa pointed out, we need to see how COVID really affected those middle schoolers and how their transition from elementary school to middle school was affected.
Well, clearly there is a lot of research that lies ahead, the AIM Ideas Lab. So we're at the end of our presentation now, everybody, and I want to thank you all for sharing. You all did so well. And does anybody have any closing words that they'd like to share?
Stigma stops now. The best time was 20 years ago, but the second best time is now. So we need to stop stigma right this moment so that the future generations don't have to go through what many high schoolers are going through today.
Okay, if we're all done, then that leaves a few minutes for Q&A. If anybody has any questions.
All right, anybody have a question? Because I do. I will run to you. Wow, I am so impressed and grateful for the time and energy that you guys put into this and to share all of this with us. It's so important. So thank you for that. I want to know what your thoughts are about having emotional health and well-being part of the core curriculum of our school, starting from preschool, K, all the way up through high school, as a way to prevent and treat and educate.
You can add on. Yeah, I think that's a really great idea. I know maybe starting it from even middle school because in middle school, that's when a lot of students start getting phones. And phones like with social media and also just being able to go out with your friends without having a parent there. That would be really interesting. And also maybe in high school, adding a part of that. I know at my school we had kind of like sex ed, maybe adding in like mental health wellness and kind of sharing ideas on good coping skills to get through any stress or anxiety that you're having because of schoolwork.
And to add on to that, I think another part that's really important of educating teens and younger kids also should be how to support each other, because as we see in the data, a lot of kids are all of them, their primary source of like support is friends. And I think in most circumstances, friends don't truly know how to support each other because they were never really told how because of the stigma. So if educators try to teach about how to support each other, that will probably help everyone just in general feel more like welcome and open in their community.
Great. Other questions? Oh, yeah.
Sorry. You said that the best thing parents can do is just listen to their teens. What if the teens don't want to talk? What advice do you have for parents to encourage their children to talk to them?
The best thing I can say to that is offer unconditional love and support, because when teens are struggling with mental health issues, we tend to have a very low self-esteem. We think that there's a lot of things wrong with us. We think we can't talk about it because we're scared that we're going to be viewed as less. So it is hard to open up sometimes, and I know that from a parent's standpoint, that is it's hard to be able to support your child if they're not opening up to you. But the more you show, I'm stressing the word unconditional love and support. Show them that you are going to love them, that you're going to support them, that you're going to be there for them, no matter what they're going through, no matter what diagnosis they may have.
And could I add on to that? Is to be transparent about everything, not just mental health. Be transparent about almost everything in life. Of course, there's some things that you should keep away from your children to know, but as long as you're open about almost everything in their life, for most of their life, that'll lead to more trust. And if you're able to share what's happening with you, then they'll be more likely to share what's happening with them.
Yeah, and mine is kind of similar to his point. And so I'm an older sister, so I feel like that's a little similar in a way, because I sometimes it's a little hard to for my sibling to open up to me, and I think that again what he said, I feel like if you do that, then they're most likely to do the same. And I feel like you could even start early on, and it might be a little frustrating because they might not reciprocate at first, but I feel like eventually they'll start getting the hang of it, and it'll be normal to talk about what they're feeling, and soon enough they'll be able to really understand what they're feeling. So I definitely think that early on will be very helpful.
Just really quickly, something to add on. We've talked a lot about normalizing mental health discussions, and I think a big part of that is bringing it into your households early, normalizing that type of conversation at home, so that when teenagers, if they do start struggling with their mental health, they feel like it's not a topic they have to tiptoe around, that they have to be careful about what they tell you. Make sure that they know that that is a welcomed conversation in your house.
Well, thank you guys so much.
You can go.
Thanks. You being here at this conference is really one of the reasons why I wanted to come and hear from you, and I appreciate your existence, I guess. And I'm sorry, I'd like to maybe make this a little bit personal. I'm curious about your own perspective of your own mental health and any kind of ways that maybe you've noticed engaging in this process, changing your own wellness with regards to mental health, or maybe even sort of changed the trajectory of your mental health throughout your lives.
Sorry. Hello? Does this work? Yeah, okay. Personally, since I started struggling with my mental health, one of the biggest things I struggled with was not feeling like I was enough, feeling like I was weak, feeling like my mental health was a flaw. I felt like there was so much wrong with me. I felt like I was incapable of doing anything because I had anxiety, because I had depression. I felt like I was a broken human being, kind of. which is why I got into mental health and these sort of things, which is why I'm so excited to be here today, because doing all of this has helped me, I don't know if this is going to make sense, but normalize the conversation in my own brain, kind of normalize that having a mental health issue, like I said, doesn't make me weak. It doesn't make me inferior to others, and it doesn't mean that I can't do everything and more that other people do. So I think that being a part of this process has really just helped me accept it for my own self.
And I think for me, my family has always been very supportive of mental health in general, but I think this program has given me a platform, like a community of friends that I can like be authentic around, which I find is very difficult, at least in the circles that I'm in at school aren't nearly as authentic as here, and it's given me an opportunity to actually be myself. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can add on to that. I know with me, with test anxiety, I really struggled with that, especially during freshman year when I had to spend my freshman year online. I got a lot of anxiety, especially when taking math tests online. That was really hard. But last year when I was in the AIM Ideas Lab, it was just nice to have friends there, knowing that we're all talking about ways on how we can better mental health for everyone. And it just made me feel like I wasn't alone and that it wasn't something that I had to be just like embarrassed about. And just knowing that there are teens out there that want to fix this and want to reduce the stigma of mental health among teens.
Anybody? Run. As I'm walking over, I do want to make a comment. Last year, when you did your data in Monterey County, and we discovered that horrible statistic that continues around the relationships, that teens won't really go to a teacher. They're reluctant to go to an adult. And we know that the number one protective factor for youth mental health is a trusted adult. We discovered that, and when you told AIM that, we decided to really start implementing youth mental health first aid training for as many adults as we could. I'm sorry, I'm a little choked up right now. And that was because of you, right? And so this year, now we know over and over that teens go to their friends and that you need one another, like what you just described. Go into your friends. And so we're implementing a teen mental health first aid program. And that's because you told us that's what we needed to do. And hearing that this program has made a difference for each of you is just gives me so much like deep sense of hope.
Yeah, I guess my question is also a little bit more personal. So now that you've done all this research, have you yourselves talked about it with your parents and your friends, and have you seen that you've maybe incorporated some changes into your life or how you approach mental health after doing this research?
I feel like I've been more reluctant to talk to my friends about what I'm going through, and I've also noticed that I'm not even trying to, but I'm talking to my friends more like, hey, how was your day? Or even just strangers and my classmates or my peers, hey, how was your day? And that can mean a lot to some people because a lot of people, as shown on the data, it feels like they're alone. The number 2 risk factor, who do you go to, is no one. So I feel like after learning that information, I think all of us are more likely to go talk to our friends or to go share to our own people because we've seen this data, and this data is also being seen at our school. I've presented this data to my school as well, and they're seeing this, and then they're trying to implement it themselves. So I feel like after doing this, I'm speaking upon myself as I'm more willing to open up to people, and I'm more willing to go up to people that I maybe don't even have a strong personal connection with and just checking in on them because I've learned the importance of mental health and the amount of people who are affected by mental health.
Yeah, definitely. Like, for me, my personal experience, sometimes my friends come up to me and tell me that they're having like a rough day. And, before really participating in this lab, I wasn't necessarily equipped with all the best practices and knowing exactly how to comfort them. But after being a part of this lab, I found myself, really knowing how to, help them through whatever they're going through and, talk to them, listen to them, and like let them know that they're not alone. I'm always here with a listening ear if they need help.
Yeah, and I think me personally, I've started to value a lot of my more authentic and open connections with some specific friends because of it, and knowing how important that is, and looking introspectively how much it helps me personally. And after that, trying to be a resource to my friends, even if they don't really want to talk to me because I don't know, kind of boring. I at least I can support people more now, and I think a lot of this has helped me know what people want to get when they're talking to you about mental health or anything they're going through. So I think it's helped me be a good resource to all my friends whenever, if ever, they want me for that.
And so adding on to that, I come from an immigrant family, so I see a lot of people, or a lot of my cousins or family members my age that I know sort of struggle to make their parents understand what they're going through, or sometimes they don't even understand what they're going through. And I know that I've had the privilege to really learn, but sometimes they're in different environments and they don't get the same education as I do. So sometimes I really try again to be a resource to them and make them feel comfortable speaking about their feelings, because a lot of them are really hesitant to tell their parents or to reach out. So definitely the result about teens not wanting to reach out to their parent when they feel they're not supported really stood out to me and changed the way that I guess present myself to anyone I know or care about, especially in my family.
One thing for me was the whole thing we kind of touched on it, the social media and how it has an impact on teenagers' mental health. Before participating in the Ideas Lab and kind of looking at the results and having discussions, I kind of just ignored the fact that social media can be dangerous for mental health, because as we all know, we like social media, we don't want to give it up. But ever since kind of going through the results, I've been trying to be a lot more aware of how I perceive what people post on social media. If I see a story, if I see a post, not comparing myself to them, not letting it, trying to not let it affect my mental health. And I'm also just trying to be less on social media. So that was just something that I just kind of ignored before the Ideas Lab, and it's just been something that's been, it's put it into perspective for me.
Okay, if there are no more questions, that's all we have, and thank you so much for listening.
Can we have a huge round of applause for these? Do you guys want to? You can stay up here while I do my closing instructions. Just join us, Gia. You do a great job moderating. Yes. Yeah. It's fantastic. So a couple of housekeeping things, but before we do that, I just want to point out that when you said that COVID's not over for you guys, that just hit me, So when COVID happened, if you remember, the people who were at risk at the very beginning were the elderly, right, and the medically fragile, and then it became more and more of us, right? But when it started happening and you guys gave up your friendships, your life, your school in lockdown to protect the COVID vulnerable, right? You did that to protect us. Your whole generation did that. And I believe so strongly that we owe you not only a debt of gratitude, but also our very best in healing the emotional wounds of your generation. And we will be committed, all of us here will be committed to doing the best that we can for you, for your generation, because what you've shared with us is the beginning of a real ripple effect of changing the way we talk about it and the way, and I just can't thank you all enough for being here and stepping into the gap to make a difference. Thank you. Okay.